All right, let's dive into something really fascinating.
Yeah.
This concept of the flight of the chariot.
Mhm.
Um, you've sent over some excerpts from what looks like a transcript,
Right.
and it's visually mapping out how this metaphorical chariot moves through the horoscope during
Yeah.
a lunar month.
Uh-huh.
And hold on, it even differentiates
Okay.
between day and night charts, nocturnal and diurnal, which already tells me this is some next level astrology.
It definitely is. And what's really interesting is focusing on these 4 points called lots: fortune, spirit, arrows, and necessity.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
And this transcript is connecting them to the movements of the sun and moon, right? Like, how does that all work?
Exactly. The transcript starts with a nocturnal new moon in Sagittarius,
Okay.
with the moon almost conjunct the sun. Visually, all 4 lots are clustered around the ascendant,
Okay.
mimicking that sun-moon conjunction.
So right at the beginning, everything's bunched up together, reflecting that concentrated new moon energy.
Yes.
What's the significance of that,
Well-
especially with them all hanging out around the ascendant?
Well, the transcript refers to Dane Rudhere's idea of the new moon as a seeding point. So it's like all these lots
Yeah.
infused with that potent new moon energy
Mm-hmm.
are imprinting themselves onto the ascendant,
Uh-huh.
which, as you know, represents our outward self and how we approach the world.
So it's like setting the tone for the entire lunar cycle right from the get-go.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got our seeds planted, our chariots all fueled up and ready to go.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, on days 1 and 2, the sun and moon start to separate.
Okay,
And the transcript visually shows the lots spreading out across the chart.
right.
And get this, it actually uses degrees to illustrate how the distance between certain lots directly correlates with the growing distance between the sun and moon.
Wow, that's a pretty cool way to show how everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
So as the sun and moon go their separate ways,
Yeah,
the lots are also spreading their wings,
Right.
so to speak.
exactly.
What's the meaning behind that spreading out?
It shows how the lunar energies,
Oh, well.
represented by those lots, are
Mhm.
starting to differentiate as the cycle progresses.
Okay.
Each lot takes on a more distinct role, influencing the ascendant in specific ways.
It's like each lot has its own mission to accomplish during this lunar cycle.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see why it's called a flight. These lots are on the move.
Exactly. The chariot lots can help us pinpoint potential areas of tension or growth during a lunar cycle.
So it's less about predicting specific events and more about understanding the underlying energy dynamics at play.
Exactly. It's like having a map of the lunar terrain,
Okay,
showing you where the hills and valleys might be,
right.
but not necessarily what you'll find on your journey through them.
Okay, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really helps to visualize how these lots can guide us through the lunar cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen the lots spread out.
Right.
We've gotten a taste of how their positions can manifest in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What happens as we move towards those bigger lunar moments,
Right.
like the first quarter and full moon?
Oh, yeah. Those are big ones.
Yeah.
As we move into those more potent lunar phases, the first quarter square and the full moon, the flight of the chariot takes on a whole new level of intensity.
Okay, I'm ready for the ride to get a little wilder.
Yeah.
The transcript mentions some pretty big shifts happening at these points.
Yeah.
It even calls the full moon a point of frenzy. What's going on with the chariot lots during these phases?
Well, think of it this way. The first quarter square is like a checkpoint,
Okay.
a moment where we're called to assess our progress.
Mm-hmm.
The seeds we planted at the new moon are starting to sprout,
Yeah.
and we might face some challenges or obstacles that force us to adjust our course.
So it's like a reality check,
Yeah.
making sure we're on the right track.
Exactly. Now, when we get to the full moon,
Yeah.
things really get shaken up.
Right, that frenzy the transcript talked about.
Yeah.
It feels like the energy really peaks at the full moon.
Yes.
How did the chariot lots reflect that?
The transcript describes some pretty significant shifts.
Yeah.
In a nocturnal chart, for example,
Mm-hmm.
spirit ascends into the upper hemisphere,
Okay.
while fortune descends into the lower hemisphere.
So does that mean our focus shifts from more material matters to spiritual or internal concerns? Like maybe at the full moon,
Yeah.
we're less concerned with external achievements and more drawn to introspection.
It's definitely a possibility. Remember, this is
Yeah.
all symbolic language.
Right.
But It aligns with that heightened awareness and emotional intensity we often experience during a full moon.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Full moons always feel like a time when emotions run high, and
Uh,
I find myself more drawn to creative pursuits or just spending time reflecting.
That's a great example of how these lunar energies can manifest.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that the specific way they play out in your life will also depend on your individual birth chart.
Okay. Right, so it's not a one-size-fits-all interpretation,
Right.
but even just understanding the general themes can be super helpful in navigating those intense full moon vibes.
Absolutely. Now, the transcript also delves into the difference between nocturnal and diurnal charts,
Okay.
highlighting how the chariot lots maintain their movement through the hemispheres.
Okay, I remember that part.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit my head was spinning a bit,
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep track of who's going where.
Oh, yeah.
Can you break down why this distinction between day and night charts matters?
Well, it suggests that these lots operate on a different level of influence.
Oh,
They're not just mirroring the sun and moon's visible positions,
right.
but rather represent a deeper,
Mhm.
more symbolic level of energy.
Oh, I
It's like they're following their own internal compass.
Regardless of whether it's day or night.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Precisely.
Uh-huh.
And this consistency adds another layer of complexity to the flight of the chariot,
Okay.
emphasizing that it's not just a simple reflection of the visible lunar cycle.
Right. It's like there's a whole hidden dimension to this lunar dance that we're only just beginning to glimpse.
Yes. I'm curious about what happens as we move into the waning phases of the lunar cycle.
Right.
Does the chariot start heading back to its starting point?
Yes, in a way,
Okay.
as the moon wanes, the chariot lots begin to converge once again towards the ascendant.
Okay.
Like they're preparing for the next new moon seeding.
It's like they're completing their journey,
Exactly.
bringing all the experiences and wisdom they've gathered back to the starting point.
Precisely. And the transcript describes the last quarter phase as a time of condensing experience and knowledge into seed form for planting at the next new moon.
Okay.
It's a time of integration and preparation for a new cycle of growth.
And I imagine the chariot lots play a key role in this process of integration.
Absolutely. As they converge towards the ascendant, they bring with them all the energies and lessons they've gathered throughout the cycle.
Yeah.
It's like they're weaving those experiences into the very fabric of our being,
Right.
preparing us for what's to come.
Wow, this whole concept of the chariot's journey is so beautifully symbolic of our own journey through life.
It really is.
It's a constant cycle of growth, renewal, and integration.
It truly is. And as we move into the final stages of this lunar cycle,
Okay.
the transcript highlights some really fascinating details about how those lots prepare us for the next new moon seeding.
Yeah.
Want to dive into those?
Absolutely. I'm hooked on this Lunar road trip.
Yeah.
Lead the way.
Yeah.
So we're in the final stretch of this deep dive into the flight of the chariot.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious to see how this whole lunar journey kind of wraps up.
Right.
We've followed those chariot lots, fortune, spirit, eros, and necessity
Yeah.
as they've spread out, shifted.
And now it sounds like they're converging back towards the ascendant.
Yes, exactly. And the transcript really emphasizes how this convergence is like a homecoming,
Okay.
bringing all the experiences and wisdom gathered throughout the cycle back to the starting point,
Right.
ready to see the next lunation.
It's like those lots have been out gathering supplies, learning new skills, and now they're returning home ready
Yeah.
to share their bounty and start building something new.
That's such a great way to visualize it. And the transcript describes this moment of convergence as aligning with the idea of setting intentions at the new moon.
Okay.
It's like those intentions are being infused with the combined energies of the sun, the moon, and all those experiences the lots have gathered along their journey.
Wow. So it's not just about setting intentions in a vacuum.
Right.
It's about tapping into this whole flow of lunar energy that's been building throughout the cycle.
Precisely.
The lessons we've learned,
Right.
especially those related to our actions and aspirations,
Okay.
are being integrated into the new moon seed. It's like our experiences are informing our future goals.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not just our inner reflections or emotional experiences that are being carried forward,
Right.
but also the concrete things we've done in the world.
Exactly. It's a holistic process, bringing together all aspects of our being.
Okay.
And then the transcript describes the actual new moon seeding, that seed moment where the sun and moon conjunct and the chariot lots merge with the ascendant.
I can only imagine how potent that moment must feel. Like
Yeah.
a culmination of everything that's come before.
Yep.
But also a burst of fresh potential.
Exactly. It beautifully illustrates the cyclical nature of life, how endings and beginnings are intertwined,
Right.
constantly influencing and shaping each other.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that we are also part of that cycle,
Yeah.
constantly evolving, integrating experiences,
Hmm.
and planting seeds for the future.
This whole concept of the flight of the chariot is so profound.
Yeah, it is.
It's given me a whole new perspective on the lunar cycle and how to work with its energies.
I'm so glad to hear that. Observing the lunar cycle and paying attention to how it resonates with your personal experience can be incredibly insightful.
Absolutely. I know the transcript mentioned a book called The Flight of the Chariot.
Yes.
Is it something you'd recommend for someone who wants to dive even deeper into this concept?
Definitely. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to explore the deeper layers of this concept and its implications for personal growth.
Wonderful. I'll have to check that out. Well, dear listener, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the flight of the chariot. We've traveled through a full lunar cycle,
We have.
following those lots as they've danced and shifted
Mm.
and ultimately returned home to seed a new beginning. It's been quite a journey.
It really has, and I hope this exploration has inspired you to pay attention to the subtle whispers of the lunar cycle and how it weaves its magic into your own life.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring the wonders of the cosmos.